longevity coach. He knows what it is like to have a stressful corporate job, raising a family, and trying to do the right things for his health. Eventually suffering from an autoimmune condition and injured back, these two health challenges ultimately became a turning point for him. He overcame those issues as well as his lifelong battle with obesity and brings a unique perspective to working with his clients. You would never believe that Deepak had to deal with obesity. So, when this father of two is not spending time with his wife and little girls, he is researching and staying at the forefront of emerging and cutting edge health research. Deepak is also a speaker, course instructor, and published writer. And our guest speaker today is Karim Delgado. Karim is a serious Vipassana meditator. He is a meta biomedical researcher, biohacker, and epigenetic health coach. He is a disruptive innovation and systems thinking health technologist. Karim is currently the CEO of Brain Mechanics, where he adds an interdisciplinary team that's building the foundation of open source health technology and therapeutic protocols that will enable a future of cost-effective, personalized, preventive, predictive, and crowdsourced medicine. Their first mission is to apply this radical new approach to take on the most tragic neurological disorders, starting with Alzheimer's disease. So I hand over the session to Karim and Deepak now, and see you all at the end.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Shabnan.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. So I'll take the lead here. So Karim's our special guest, and I'll be prompting him along, and then we'll have questions all at the end there. So I think we all would agree, and I'm sure you would as well, Karim, that probably the most fundamental thing that people could do for their health is probably sleep and quality sleep. So with that nugget, I'll throw it to you to respond and take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sleep is something we do for a big part of our lives. We spend about, some of us 6 to maybe 10 hours of our day sleeping. And it has such a profound effect on our biology, on our health. And right now, there's quite a lot of issues right now with sleep worldwide. People are not getting good quality sleep. It's a bit of an epidemic. There's actually more issues with sleep, things like car accidents, more car accidents related to lack of sleep that there are actually of drunk driving and drug abuse. Just not getting one night of sleep, the next day is almost getting a cognitive decline, like you would actually have consumed large amounts of alcohol. Sleep's not something that you can actually, a lot of folks under the impression that sleep is something that you can, maybe I won't sleep really well for 4 days, and then after that I'll make it up on the weekend. It doesn't really work that way. There isn't such a thing as sleep that you could actually make up. So the damage that you have when you have lack of sleep just has such a profound effect, as cognitive dysfunction as well as even hormonal. If you don't sleep well, you don't perform well on the next day when you have to go to work or engage with your family. And that causes a bit more stress, and then stress actually loops into causing sleep issues. So it's a really important thing, and one of the best things that you could do for your health is actually optimizing your sleep.
So we probably have a mixed group of people watching this, from who just want a right start to the beginning to probably people who are more advanced, maybe even biohacking and wearing wearables and stuff. And we'll get to some of that technology at the end. But where do we start? Where's the beginning? Where's the very starting point of sleep here?
Yeah, so I would say that understanding sleep and the impacting of sleep, right? There's a lot of different factors that impact sleep. So really the main factors are environmental. So there's a lot of different things that impact sleep, like, for example, light. So we need light, and getting light early on the day to reset our circadian rhythm is a really important thing. So folks who actually are shift workers and not getting, light, is affecting their health, right? And then having the right amount of light in the morning. So being exposed to blue light, you've got some receptors in our eyes that actually kick off all these different physiological effects in our body around the light. But then if we actually have, for example, blue light in the morning, that's great, being exposed to bright light like that. But then if you have that light at night, right before you go to sleep, that's an issue. So one of the things that is fairly common nowadays is people being exposed to blue light where they're electronics. So our precious iPhones, iPads, and Android devices that we're exposed to, our big plasma TVs, those are actually disrupting our sleep because it's sending these bright light signals and disrupting our melatonin and other things that actually help us with regulating sleep. So light is a big thing for us. The time of the day when you actually take your first food intake as well helps you to reset your rhythm, your circadian rhythm throughout the day. So it's an important thing to actually, when you take your first meal. And then throughout the day, as we encounter our day, there are things that we encounter such as stress, right? So at Brain Mechanics, we're really focusing on stress and how it impacts sleep and things like this, right? And stress it's a thing that there's good stress and bad stress. And I can get to that in a little bit later. But for us, it's a really important thing. And we found that quite a lot of folks who are actually having sleep issues are related to stress. And then you have other factors like, having the time of the day when you have your last meal and then when you go to sleep, right? So if you go to sleep and, if you have a meal that could be like a meal that takes a while to actually process or digest, like heavy in proteins and things like that, when you go to sleep, then your metabolism is going to be processing these things and is going to increase your resting heart rate. And then that's going to impact sleep quality as well. And the nutrition as well. There are things like some folks actually not get enough magnesium and other things in their diet that is impacting the quality of sleep, right? But stress, I would say, is really the main one. And we're all constantly going on. We don't sleep well, so therefore you're either drinking lots of chai tea in the morning or going through and getting caffeinated to actually try to power through that. And then what happens is that overstimulates us and it increases our cortisol levels, which is like related to stress. And then that keeps building up. And then we're constantly trying to accelerate. And then all of a sudden, when we get to going to start preparing for sleep, then those issues bring up, and then we're running ourselves ragged. So our minds are constantly racing, and having stress is a big issue of cognitive issues with sleep, right? So it just impacts all that. So yeah, those are kind of the factors. And then you also have temperature. So when you're sleeping, your body really needs to cool down before you actually, as you're going to sleep, there's a natural process around that. So having a room that's too warm, for example, could impact the quality of sleep. And sleep in general, there are different parts of sleep. So I know a lot of folks try to get into different stages, but I think on a high level, as far as sleep, is you have really a few things that you measure when you go to sleep. You have sleep induction, so the amount of time that it takes you to fall asleep. So that's a good performance indicator of whether you're sleeping well or not, the time it takes you to go to sleep. And if your mind's racing, that might elevate to 45 minutes or an hour. You're sitting there in bed going, oh my gosh, I can't go to sleep, right? And then when you're sleeping,
Karim, if I could just
yes.
interrupt, just for people out there, it's also known as sleep latency. Also, it's just another term for that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sleep latency. Actually, that's probably the more technical term. So sleep latency, the amount of time it takes you to fall asleep. So if your mind is racing, it's going to be really hard to go to sleep. If you're digesting food, it's going to be really hard to sleep. Certain kinds of heavier foods. If you're stressed, the same thing. You're just kind of dealing with that stress throughout the day. If the temperature is not right, then you're going to be harder to fall asleep. So all these things kind of come together on sleep and the sleep. When you're trying to fall asleep, and then as you're going to sleep, usually the first part of the sleep is delta waves. So delta waves are big waves, right? So our brains operate in different ways, right? You have fast waves like beta brain waves when we're alert, and throughout the day the brain kind of does beta waves, and then you have other slower waves like alpha waves, meditators, and theta waves are bigger waves, right? And delta waves are a big part of sleep. And it's a really important part of sleep because delta waves is when memory gets consolidated and when our body actually releases a lot of hormones to heal. So the amount of delta waves that you have in sleep is a good indicator of the quality of sleep. For Alzheimer's patients, for example, they tend not to actually have as much delta waves. And delta waves are also really important because when your mind is in delta state, prominent delta waves, the tissue in your brain shrinks, and you have this pathway where it clears up through your lymphatic system. They actually discovered a new organ that's part of the lymphatic system that clears up all this different buildups that happens in your brain. So Alzheimer's patients, they have a really hard time clearing that, and therefore they have a lot of buildup of proteins like amyloid plaque or tau proteins. So they can't clear all these different things. So delta waves are really important because that's when we get rid of a bunch of toxins, things like that in our brains. So that's a big part of sleep. And then also REM sleep. I'm sure a lot of folks know about REM sleep, rapid eye movement. It's when your eyes are kind of moving around. And that's when a lot of the daydreaming happens. So usually when you're younger, you would have about 50% of your sleep is all about dreaming. So I'm not sure if, Deepak, yourself, when you were a kid, did you have a lot of vivid dreams and things like that, right? Dreams that you could remember.
Yeah, I've always been really good at that. Even to this day, I still remember, not every night, but quite often I'll remember dreams that I had during the night, or at least kind of towards the tail end. And they tend to be days where my REM is higher, and I do track that, and we'll get to tracking later. But if I could just clarify one thing, you were talking about delta waves. Would that equate to deep sleep then? Because a lot of people know REM and deep.
That's right. So
okay.
delta waves are part of the non-REM sleep. So it's non-REM sleep. And they have different levels of that as you're going through. You have lighter sleep and then non-REM sleep, and delta waves happen through a phase of the non-REM sleep. And the body usually cycles range, most folks about 90 minutes. So you'd have some delta, some light sleep, and then REM, and then it'll repeat. Only thing is, usually folks have delta waves happen to the start of the dream cycle. So the first maybe 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep. And then after that, it'll be mostly cycles of delta and, of REM and lighter sleep. But it really depends on the person. I mean, it's really interesting. I personally, talking about quantification, I've quantified my sleep for, almost 2 years now with headsets that actually measure my brainwaves. So I'm kind of one of those weird guys that goes to sleep with an EEG on his head. But it's such a dynamic thing, depending on the type of the day, whether I had, worked out quite a lot, I'll have maybe more delta waves on that day because my body needs to release more hormones to heal, as compared to a very highly emotional day. Like 2 days ago, I had a pretty emotional, taxing day. I did some meditation before I went to sleep, and my REM was about 5.5 hours of REM sleep. Almost 60%
That's amazing.
of my sleep was, so it's so dynamic. Like, you have doctors who measure sleep, who do sleep studies, and the approach here in Western medicine is, they might do a sleep study where you have this device called PSG, and you go to a lab and they measure temperature, measure brain waves, measure all kinds of different things. And they, the whole idea is to get at least a snapshot of what your sleep is. But I can tell you 24 hours is not really enough to actually understand people's sleep patterns. I've done it for about 2 years, and it's such a dynamic thing. Depending on the type of food that I eat, the quality of sleep might change depending on, my emotions, my workload, my stress, those kind of things that I've seen that stress impacts sleep. And then, so you go through your sleep cycles, and then, when you're close to being awakened as well, a big part of that could impact your sleep or how you feel the next day is when you have like the inertia of waking up, right? So if you're waking up and you're at a cycle where you're, maybe in deep REM sleep, and all of a sudden you get woken up, you're actually not going to feel as great for an hour and a half to 2 hours, right? So now you're like, your brain's not working well, so you're not hitting up some caffeine or whatever else to stimulate yourself.
Maybe I'll just interject here for 1 second. As we mentioned right off the top, sleep, again, probably the most important thing you can do for your health. Now, where we're at now with this pandemic across the world and this crisis going on, and many people being, self-isolating at home or being quarantined, et cetera. I know just me personally, I've just taken my alarm off and letting myself wake up naturally. Now that could still vary depending on all these factors that Karim alluded to, or that we'll get to. But I would implore people that if you're not working, or you're on a reduced workload, or even if you're still trying to work from home, you're not having a commute, try and get a little bit extra sleep right now. Now's the time to try and, Kareem alluded to, you can't bank sleep, but, try and sleep as long as you can and wake up naturally so that, you get into that flow that Kareem was just talking about. So I'll throw it back to you
Absolutely.
there, Kareem.
And that's really a good point too, Deepak. I think that's a key thing to sleep. And I think training yourself to sleep well is an art form, right? And some of the things, right off the bat you could do is actually, even if it's on the weekend, like try to go to sleep at the same time. Like the body works with regularity, right? So the waking up part, I think you could definitely, have it naturally, but really get yourself, prepare your sleep, prepare for sleep. I go through a whole preparation of going to sleep where, I cut off electronics for about an hour and a half before I go to sleep, and then I even meditate before I go to sleep. And by the time I actually go to bed, I'm already hitting the ground running. My sleep, the time that it takes to actually get inducted into sleep is much shorter. It'll be maybe 4 or 5 minutes as compared to just doing some work and then not doing any kind of thing like meditation or breath work. Do quite a lot of breath work as well on days where I'm finding that I really need to be able to get myself to tell my body to actually, my autonomic nervous system, that, hey, it's time to actually relax and digest and go to sleep. So those are kind of things that I might do on a regular basis. And if you do those things as a ceremony, if you will, just like when we're putting our kids to bed, right? We're saying, hey, you got to shower, and then you have to, get on your pajamas, and then you might be some light reading, right? And that's really setting the stage for actually going to sleep, right?
Yeah, Kareem, I think you're already alluding to a lot of things here on sleep hygiene. You already hit a couple points, but maybe if you just take a step back and just really give the audience a real sort of step by step of all sort of the things that one could consider for sleep hygiene, excuse me, as you prepare for bed. Maybe just take a little bit step back and hit some of those points again, plus all the others.
Yeah. So making sure that, at least at night, after 7 o'clock, not really be exposed to too much light, so I personally wear some glasses that help me with, I haven't retrofitted my house with all the lighting that I need to actually not be exposed to the junk light that I feel like would be bad junk light for at night. So I'll wear some blue blocking glasses, or I might wear some amber color glasses that help me to simulate almost like the sunset. Right. So there's a whole physiological thing when you're actually looking at the sunset and things become orange. Actually, that is a signal to your body to say, okay, you have to wind down. The problem is that a lot of the lighting that we have in our homes, with LEDs and fluorescent lights, that's really not the kind of light that we need to be exposed to. So as we're wrapping up the night, then, being mindful of that, human beings back in the day, we used to have candle lights and things like that. And I would recommend folks at home actually try that. That is a low cost way of helping you kind of ease on to sleep. If you just had a room where you have candles and you just kind of listen to some music, and I guarantee you'll sleep like a baby that night. So those are the lights, a big thing. Exposing myself to good light in the morning. Myself, I tend to have lower levels of magnesium. So I actually have to supplement of magnesium. So I sometimes cramp up and things like that, or not sleep really well because of my low magnesium. So I take Epsom salt and I boil it, and then I create magnesium oil, and then I rub it behind my knees, rub it my shoulders, forearms, and I take the magnesium throughout the day as well helps me. And magnesium absorption peaks around noon, so taking the magnesium in the morning I think is really helpful for the nutrition side, and then closer to nighttime as well, it helps to sleep. So those are kind of things that I do throughout the day. And then just really managing your stress. That's an important thing, right? If we're chronically stressed, so I'm not sure if you folks know more about or know much about the science of stress, but the body has something called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is divided into different areas, right? You have your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, which back in the day when we were hunter and gatherers, if we needed to run away from a lion or whatever, that boost of adrenaline, that boost of energy helped us to survive, right? And then you have something called parasympathetic, which is really hitting the brakes on the stress, right? And there's an organ that's really important. It's called the vagus nerve that actually is a braking system, right? So there's all kinds of different practices that you could do that we could touch a little bit later in recommendations that to strengthen that vagal tone. But if we're constantly hitting the accelerator and we're constantly getting fight or flight, things like, it might not be as obvious, but things like notifications in your cell phone. Like every time you hit a notification on your cell phone, your body kind of startles a little bit. You're actually getting stress, and the stress builds out through the day, right? Managing your day-to-day work, right? So you actually, not constantly checking your email inbox for things, but just taking times during the day where you can actually check the inbox to check to see if you have any messages, right? Things like in your computer, right? Just notifications as well. It's an important thing to maybe tuning those out, right? And then just really care for yourself, like things like, walking out and being exposed to nature, just going out and getting a little bit of physical activity through the day. That really helps out with managing your stress. And even things like forest bathing. The Japanese do this quite often where, they walk out and be exposed to nature. And that is really a therapy. It really helps with managing the stress. And then also, just like people take breaks for smoking, right? Well, you could take mindfulness breaks, right? I mean, all mindfulness is observing something and having an awareness for something, right? And that starts to shift the brain from the reactive part of the brain to more the prefrontal cortex, kind of the executive functions and helping with regulation. So taking breaks through the day of doing mindfulness, could be as simple as, a technique called coherence training where you breathe in for 5 seconds and then you exhale for 5 seconds. If you were to do that every so often throughout the day, it helps you dealing with stress. And then when you're actually encountering very stressful events, maybe trying some 4-7-8 breathing, which is breathe in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8 seconds. And we've actually added a component in brain mechanics where we actually ask you to no breath for 4 seconds. And it's really interesting because what that does, it elicits a stressful response. And initially you're going, oh my gosh, I can't breathe, right? And it's going to simulate when you're in a stressful moment in your life. But then if you just start realizing it's okay, I have no breath, and I'm going to breathe in now for 4 seconds again, and I continue, then it actually starts training you to help you regulate when you have stressful events. So taking regular breaks throughout the day on breath work or even mindfulness. I happen to be very grateful to India. Just such a wonderful gift. I've been practicing pranayamas for many years and Vipassana meditation. And it's such a wonderful thing to be able to meditate and be in a state where you can observe things objectively and not react anymore. It's such a powerful therapy. I mean, when I went to take my first course, I was an entrepreneur, and my first 10-day course following the Vipassana tradition by S. Nguyenka, but I went to take a 10-day course, and I had a stomach ulcer, I had sleeping issues, and I got to tell you, I took my 10-day course. Very difficult to complete a 10-day course, a vow of silence and all of that, but it's such a worthy investment. After that, I didn't really need any more medication at all, and I was actually able to sleep better. And sometimes even when I'm in the middle of the night, my mind might awaken and might say, you have these things. I take down and I write notes of what my mind is trying to tell me, and I write down and maybe keep a little journal of the things that I have to kind of write down, and I just let it go. And if I'm still awake, I'm like, okay, great opportunity to sit down and practice some Vipassana meditation. In fact, I did this last night. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and meditated for an hour and a half and started my day, and I was all, refreshed. So those are kind of things that you could do during the day. And then, closer to nighttime, just, making sure that, you're not taking a stimulant like coffee or tea too late during the day. And then also making sure that, your last meal should be about 3 hours before you actually go to sleep. And some people, like my physiology, for example, I can't really handle steak or any kind of heavy protein type thing at night, or else I won't sleep really well. And because I quantify my sleep, I can say, okay, my resting heart rate increased, my temperature increased, but why is that? Because I'm digesting all this food, right? Even the quality of sleep will impact my dream qualities, right? I'll have maybe some night beers if I have spicy food. So I've been keeping a journal and writing these things down, and now I'm learning what works for me, but what works for me might necessarily work for you, Deepak, or someone else, right? You might be able to have a heavier meal. So it's all about figuring out what works for us. But those are some kind of general guidelines, along with, having things like, reducing the amount of light that you have, And dealing with the stress as well. Like I do practice 4-7-8 before breathing, before I go to sleep as well, many nights. And that puts myself in a more of a parasympathetic state where it's more digestion and relaxation. And it really works. If you wake up in the middle of the night, 4-7-8 breathing is a really powerful thing as well.
So let me interject here. I just want to remind everyone too that we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So you can start popping in your questions into the Q&A box now, and we'll get to them towards the end. Karim, we talked about hygiene here and we in a couple different places. Maybe just for the audience, I'll just maybe try and bring it all back, and maybe you fill in the gaps of where I missed something out, and maybe I'll put a little bit of my own spin on that as well. So I think what Karim alluded to earlier, your sleep for tonight really started when you woke up this morning, getting that great exposure to the sun, getting the full spectrum of the sunlight, including blue light, which the sun rays does. Now, I know people all over the world who are listening to this. I live in Canada. Half the year it's frozen tundra, it's winter. It doesn't get light out till like well after I'm awake. So sometimes that's tough. But I always suggest with my clients, if you can't get morning light because you're already at the office or what have you by the time the sun actually rises, then try and get out before noon at least, or at lunchtime, and try and get some natural sun. And if it's minus 40 outside where I live sometimes in the winter, at least try and get some on your face and into your eyes is what I would say. So it starts with your day. I think, de-stressing, which I think we'll probably talk some more, and Karim went through very thoroughly thus far already, de-stressing throughout the day. Myself personally, I like to do my meditation and mindfulness in the morning. I think that sets my intention for the day and really helps me throughout my day, and that's something I kind of suggest to my clients as well. But although the best time to meditate is the time you'll actually do it, so it doesn't really matter when, as long as you do it. And then I think as we get to dinner, I agree with what Karim just said. 3 hours before, everyone's different, obviously. I certainly noticed that with myself, my wife, clients, everyone's different. But 3 hours before, I also add in exercise. Many people, if you work out in the evening and there's too close before bedtime, your cortisol and hormones, get really elevated. That's probably don't want to exercise too close to bedtime as well. And certainly play around with it. I mean, I have an Oura ring. We'll talk about that probably, I'm sure, in a little bit when we talk about wearables and sort of biohacking. I've tracked my sleep, not for as long as Karim, but for well over a year and a half, thereabouts, and done experiments on myself and what affects me. And what I find is if sort of a healthy dinner, but that's a little bit like I tend to backload my carbs. This is again, individualized, but for me, what works is if I have sort of my healthy carbs, my vegetables, maybe some raw honey or something towards in my dinner time. I actually sleep better. I get better quality sleep. I tend to fast and everything, but we'll probably talk about fasting on tomorrow's call. And then again, when you get into it, I also wear blue light blocking glasses at night. Red lenses, and try and you can change your devices to night mode. You can change the blue on your TV, all those sort of things, and just actually get off the devices and have some quiet time before bed. And I'll be honest, that doesn't always happen in our household, but all those type of things, and just try and really, or at least dim the lights if you have dimmers. Our house isn't all tricked out with the red lights, red light bulbs as of yet either, but all these little things, and then just make your bedroom, I think, just a sanctuary as well. Don't have devices in there. You don't, if you need your phone for an alarm clock, put it in airplane mode. Or just don't have them in there. No distractions. Sleep should be the bedroom should be for sleeping and for extracurricular activities only. And then temperature, which Karim also alluded to. Again, everyone's a little bit different. Me and my wife have different set points, so we tend to keep it a bit cooler to sort of help me, and then she'll just like bundle up. I don't like to be bundled up. I like to wear minimal clothing to bedtime. So she doesn't mind, so she'll wear the extra just so we can keep the room cool. So I think. I think did I hit everything? Did I miss anything there, Karim?
I think
from a sleep hygiene perspective.
Yeah, I think some people too. Maybe some people benefit from collagen as well at night. So before they go to sleep, like some people helps them with sleep quality. Like I've seen collagen really help out quite a lot on my sleep. I think you're right with the having apps and things that actually change the spectrum of the light. I find that that's one level, but just even getting rid of the electronics, like just switching, because what happens is your brain, when you're using an electronic like an iPhone or things like this, you're constantly hitting a part of your brain that is almost like gambling, where you're just like the slot machine, you're getting a reward on these things. It's kind of wired that way. So it's activating parts of your brain that as you're winding down shouldn't be activated. So I know it's hard, but the best thing to do is actually just switch over from digital and move to paper or something where you want to be exposed to that, because it stops triggering that part of it. You hit up on the temperature too. So I actually have a machine that regulates the temperature on my sleep. So it'll actually hit up hour by hour. It'll change temperature. So initially cooler, after that, towards the end of the morning, it'll actually increase the temperature. So I'll wake up. So even temperature increases. It helps you to kind of wake you up naturally. So you have ways of actually maybe going through and having a natural way of awakening as you're going through the night. And then also some people have issues where they wake up in the middle of the night and they have to urinate, right? So if that's an issue for you, then try to make sure that you don't drink, load up on a lot of water before you go to sleep as well, because you'll be awakened. It'll startle you as well to wake you up and go to the bathroom.
Yeah, let me interject. The perfect points. I agree with you. Number one, that just get off your devices and an hour before or whatever. But let's realistically, for most people, that is tough because they're doing work or what have you, or sometimes that's the only time they're connecting with family members after their day is done. So I sympathize with those people. So again, the best is get off. But if you have to be on them, change the settings. One thing I forgot to mention. And again, I think the best time for anyone I think everyone should have some sort of gratitude practice as well. And I think the best time to do it is when you're actually going to do it. But for myself personally, I tend to like to do it actually one of the last things I do before bed. I know a lot of people, morning journals, etc. First thing, set your day on intention. I actually find the opposite, that if I reflect back on what I was grateful for in the day and take that into going into bed, helps my sleep as well. And then also, you were talking about breath work. I tend to, when I go to sleep as well, just trying to do I change it up, but sometimes 4-7-8 or just box breathing or what have you, and I find that it helps my latency to fall asleep a lot faster as well. Quick little anecdote with a client I have right now. We found that he was just not having enough water, and it was affecting sort of downstream health effects for him. So we upped the water, but then he was pushing it to like late in the day. And then he started to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I was like, okay, no, you got to move it down because you don't want to affect your sleep. You're trying to solve one problem and you're affecting another issue. So we got that all sorted out. But that was a very good point. So I'll throw it back to you there. I think we've kind of got sleep hygiene out of the way now. Maybe back to stress, and then leave some time for some of the fun biohacky things as well.
Absolutely. So I do want to make a point too that you touch on gratitude. So I do start my day. So I literally kneel down and kind of bow down and just give gratitude to be breathing, alive, and starting my day. And it does really set things up that way. And just like breath work, gratitude throughout the day sprinkled is really good, especially if you have a stressful a moment and things like that. Like it really helps to reset kind of the rose-colored glasses through the day. And helps with that. And then for sure, part of going to sleep as well for me is gratitude. And, sometimes if I do have that, I find it that I'm waking up in the middle of the night as well. One of the things that helps me actually reset is actually gratitude. And gratitude, I've also, incorporated gratitude into my hand washing. So I don't know about you guys, but hand washing is a big thing now with COVID-19, right? So initially I was singing happy birthday in English and Spanish. And that's when I knew that after I finished doing those, that I knew that my hands were clean. But now I actually started incorporating gratitude as a gratitude break. And I find it's really improved my quality of life. I'm just like, I'm, finding, one thing that you're happy and grateful for. It could be a person, an object, and then, on the past and in the future and then in the present. And that's a really wonderful practice. Gratitude is such a wonderful medicine. It just shifts the perspective into just a new world where you're now in an accepting of something instead of scarcity. Just becomes a mindset of abundance. And I think that's a really important thing. Two points that you touched up there, Deepak.
So just a quick question here. So is your gratitude while you're washing your hands actually making your hand washing longer then, or or is,
I actually, so well, they say you should be watching, like you should be washing your hands at least twice as long, so twice singing happy birthday. So, but I've gotten into a rhythm where I know kind of how much time I'm spending. So if I do quick gratitude, no, but if I do gratitude where it's like just kind of pondering about these things, or even just identifying, like, you know what, this person that I'm talking to today, maybe they're having some stress and maybe I can help them and just give some kind of kindness, or, you know, identifying people that I can help to as well. That becomes a little bit longer. So yeah, I find it it takes about as long as it would be for singing happy birthday twice now in two languages. But no, yeah, it's been a wonderful practice. You try it out. It really helps. It becomes now a productive thing. You know, the other thing too is that as we're just hyper connected society, right? So constantly, like, try to be mindful of taking breaks where you're just taking a break from your phone. Just scheduling that in to say, you know, for the next 3 hours, I'm not going to look at my phone, because a lot of folks might not realize, but because the phones activate a part of our brain that has got to do with addictions, like gambling, you're getting the bing, 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 quick gratification, is really an addictive device. And I got to tell you, try to go without, you know, half a day without your phone, or even a day. You'll notice that these things are very addictive, and it creates anxiety, and it creates stress as well. So just taking some time of vacationing away from electronics. You know, last night we had a session with a family where we're doing, I think it's called Pictionary, or yeah, I think it was one of these games where we're trying to guess what movies it is, or what game show, or what character it is, or whatever. And we were just like, no, let's do it without our iPads or iPhones. Let's just write these things down. And we literally spent 2 hours. That's how we spent our evening last night. It was such a wonderful event of just, you know, kind of, you know, doing something as a family, but it's not a mindless thing. It was a very mindful to engage with them, to, you know, see their emotions. And, you know, and it wasn't a competitive thing. It was just like, it was a funny thing, right? To just having time with a family to connect. I know a lot of us are you know, by the situation of COVID-19, you know, forced to actually stay at home. But I've seen it, that it's been a wonderful experience to get to know my kids more, you know, and just having activities together, and just, you know, literally we have now 3 meals a day where we eat together, right? You know, even if I'm fasting, I'll still do water, or if I'm doing, you know, maybe a fasting with tea or something like that, then, you know, I'll still sit with them, and it's just been great. Like, we're actually getting to know each other a lot more than we were before. So just those things are really good to release stress. You know, like talking to people. Human beings are social beings. We're meant to actually interact with others. You know, I think as a society, we moved away from, you know, maybe social media and all these things, but nothing replaces a hug with a loved one. Nothing replaces shaking hands with somebody. Nothing replaces eye-to-eye contact with people, and just getting to do that, because we're built for that. I mean, literally, there's sensors in our skin that it's called the salient network, where it completely hacks into your autonomic nervous system by just touch. You know, so just the fact of you're hugging somebody or interacting with somebody, those things actually help you to de-stress, and even get much better sleep, because you're now activating those receptors, right? And I
yeah.
think, sorry, and I think that, you know, as a society too, with this whole COVID-19, we are taught the social distance, but I really would say that we need to get closer as human beings. We actually need to embrace that, but maybe there's a physical distance, but the social aspect of it should really be encouraged. You know, like, really go out there and you know, even if it's through social media, like we're doing now, you know, just even looking at somebody through video has an effect on my physiology, you know?
Yeah, two things just for the last couple points you were talking about. So one, I would agree, and I'll tie it back to sleep. That touch, like, you know, I think any parents, or, you know, whether they have kids now or their kids are older and out of the house or what have you, I think, you know, why do our kids always want to hug before bed, right? They want that touch, they want that, you know, sensory right before bed helps them sleep, right? I know that's certainly with my kids. if I'm you know, working on a project or something like that, like they literally will not go to sleep until like I give them a hug, you know, assuming I'm not away, which rarely happens. So I think that's, you know, that's very important, and I think that's great, the games and all that sort of thing. And yeah, 3 meals a day altogether, that's, I don't know, still not happening in our house, but something to work on. But one thing I wanted to say, also just going back a couple minutes, of taking a break or taking a, you know, a device, you know, holiday or what have you. So we'll talk about this more in 2 days from now when we talk about movement on Wednesday. But when I have my self-care time, which is typically in the morning, where I'll do my stretching, do my exercise, do my meditation, sit in the sauna, etc., my phone is like other side of the house. I don't care what comes in, emails, texts, what have you. Like when I'm doing my self-care time, I don't want to be distracted with any of those things, as Karim alluded to, sort of that response, you know, to your nervous system. I want to be, you know, present with, you know, whether I'm doing cardio, whether I'm strength training, stretching, again, meditating, whatever. I don't want to be distracted. So I think that's perfect. I think more people, we need to adopt that more as a society. Don't be afraid to put your phone away for even 20 minutes or an hour or what have you. If it's important, people will get it. Will get a hold of you. They'll call you back or what have you. So anyway, just 2 points I want to make. So I'll throw it back to you, Karim. And is there any more about stress you want? I think we've gotten that pretty good. If there's anything else, or maybe sort of the hacking or the quantification of sleep, maybe we can move on to otherwise.
Yeah. So there's really, for sleep, I think there's two main areas to really quantify, right? I think I alluded to, again, is stress. So you want to quantify your stress. So, you know, there's wearables out there right now that help you to quantify stress. There's actually things like, you know, having your cortisol levels measured throughout the day as well, to measure stress. Maybe Dr. Shopman can talk a little bit about the lab work that could actually capture some of those measurements. And there's a whole bunch of different biology that you could capture to you know, measure stress levels and any other subsequent hormones and things like that. They're affected by that. And then, you know, there's devices, right? And devices are getting better. You know, there's fairly convenient devices to measure sleep quality. You know, I think, you know, what we've done in brain mechanics, so we've actually measured the gold standard, which is called a PSG, and that PSG would then mapped it out to other devices, wearables, and we're looking to look at the variances so that we can then at least understand how they compare to the gold standard. But at the end of the day, I think that what matters are trends. You know, so, you know, if your device, if for example, you got a Fitbit, were very popular, they're not the best sleep tracking devices. But does it really matter? Probably not, because all you care about is like, you know what, if this device saying that, you know, if I compare Fitbit to a PSG, the PSG says that I got 15 minutes of deep sleep, but the Fitbit says that I got an hour and 10 minutes. Well, you know, that's okay if you're trying to get scientific stuff, but at the end of the day, what you really care about is the trends. Like, you know, if you're trying to biohack, you're just trying to capture a sample that I'm doing, for example, you know, taking some supplement that's going to help me sleep better in theory, and it worked for X people. I'm going to see if it works for my own biology. I'm going to try it for a week or 2 weeks, and I'm going to measure my deep sleep and my REM sleep and my quality score, whether I'm using an Aura or Ring or Fitbit, and then, you know, looking at the trends. Did it actually work with my biology, right? Or I ate late steak or chicken or whatever it is you ate protein-wise. Maybe I need to experiment to see if that's okay with my biology. So these devices help you to provide waypoints, and it helps you to understand what's going on in your biology, so that you can have interventions that are you know, specific for you. What works? Do you get better sleep? You know, everybody's different. You know, I know in Western medicine, some folks try to preach on, you know, you get X amount of hours of sleep, and there are some principles there, but some people are different types of sleepers, right? Some people might not require, they're wired to get 6.5 hours of sleep. Are they going to, you know, in their biology, because their genetics, maybe that's okay. Somebody else might need 8 or 9 hours, right? Because of their biology, right? Now you do have different needs where you have different ages. For example, teenagers need better, much more hours of sleep as compared to somebody who's 40 years old or 45 years old, right? And even their sleep patterns change, right? Kids used to, their biology tends to be staying up later at night and then waking up later in the morning. But here we are, society saying, no, you got to get up at 6 in the morning and you get on a bus at 7 o'clock in the morning so you can get going. But that's actually causing harm to kids if you're actually, imposing something that is not biocompatible to their biology, right? So we could totally quantify and do experiments on these things, but are we going to be able to change the school system so they do that? Probably not, right? But just understanding our biology, understanding where you are in your life journey, I think is an important thing. And these devices I think they're good enough now to actually understand the changes of trends and to experiment on yourself. We coach our clients to do experiments every 2 weeks, right? We find that every 2-week interventions tend to be able to help you with quantify, get a good idea of what's going on in your biology. So interval, then you would do it for 2 weeks, and then prior to that and after that, we also suggest capturing some baseline data so that we can compare that to.
So yeah, let me jump in there. So yeah, there have been studies that where school boards or schools have made a later start time, and they find that marks have gone up. So I think making kids wake up too early. I mean, again, it is very individualized, even for kids, but that there are studies that show that. Myself personally, within our family, we've had Fitbits, Garmin's. I have the Oura Ring. By far. And I think I'm not alone in this thought that, but at least right now, for a wearable or sort of consumer grade wearable, probably the Oura Ring is the top as far as most accuracy. My Fitbit or my Garmin would give me much more. He's way more generous as far as deep sleep and REM sleep than my Oura Ring. So I take that for what I truly believe. The other thing too, I mean, whether people have a wearable to track sleep or not, and this is something I encourage my clients to do. Not all of them have wearables, but keep a log. How do you feel? How do you feel in the morning? How do you feel in the day? And then think about, what did I do? What did I have last night? What did I eat potentially even 2 days ago? What happened? But certainly, so if you just keep a little track, because I do have an Oura Ring, I track everything all day. I'm a bit of a geek that way, and I'll just track all my Oura metrics and then have a qualitative summary of what I did the day before, so I can find trends. And I have my clients do that as well, even if they don't have any wearable. And some of the things, and Karim, please jump in after, but I found for me, I'm a slow caffeine metabolizer. Karim kind of mentioned coffee earlier, so if I have even a second if I have a third cup of coffee, even if it's super early in the morning, and certainly if it's like later, it messes up my sleep. It seems like one drink of alcohol, I can get by, but that second one, I'm done. I'm toast. Terrible sleep. And then some of the other things we mentioned earlier, eating too late compared to when I go to bed, eating too heavy a meal or a very protein-rich meal, definitely, like Karim mentioned, raises your temperature. Your body's too hard digesting as opposed to trying to relax, and sleep affects my sleep quality, and a whole lot of things. I mean, I've put blog posts about that stuff before, so I don't delve into that too much, but yeah, just wanted to add those couple of comments, and just give a reminder to anyone. We will have a question and answer here starting fairly shortly, so please, if you have any questions, throw them in the box, and we'll get to them afterwards.
So just going back to the devices, so we've quantified quite a lot of different devices against the gold standard, which is a PSG. The Oura Ring for sure is a lot more accurate, we've seen, than a Fitbit example. So it's actually capturing data on your finger, right? And the finger data is a bit more accurate. The Oura Ring also captures temperature. So temperature is a really key indicator. In fact, I think Oura is now doing some studies with coronavirus as well, because they measure temperature, but also the key performance indicator that an Oura Ring is pretty good at measuring is heart rate variability. And heart rate variability, I mentioned the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and vagal tone, the vagus nerve, and heart rate variability is it gives a direct measurement to your vagal tone health. And the Aura Ring excels at measuring heart rate variability. It measures it at a standard time during the night, so that you capture that data set and compare it on a nightly basis. So you can compare that. It measures temperature, measures resting heart rate, and pulse and things like that. So it really is a really good, convenient device. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one, but here's can you guys see this ring? So it's an Aura Ring, and it's got some sensors in the middle of that. Now, there are ways of, those are kind of high-tech ways to quantify your sleep. We also use a brain mechanics, other things with our clients that maybe they don't want to go the technology route. So there's, if they have insomnia, you have the Insomnia Severity Index. There's a tool by Pittsburgh as well. That's a questionnaire that Pittsburgh Sleep Assessment, I believe. And those are actually questionnaires that you could use as well as part of the repertoire to actually quantify the quality of sleep. And there's also some questionnaires that, in fact, we're doing some free coaching now. Anybody on the call, so you're going to go to brainmechanics.io and just sign up for a free coaching consultation, and we could actually share a bit more of these tools that you could use that are low cost tools that you could do to quantify your stress, quantify your sleep. And then once you have those tools, then you can then use those metrics to help you to kind of measure any kind of the impact or any of these changes that you're looking to make in your life. We've seen that other devices, the Apple device is pretty good, but again, it's in a wrist form factor, and the heart rate variability is not quite as accurate as an Aura Ring. It just depends what your needs are, right? Some people don't want to wear rings. Some people want to wear rings. We have devices that we prescribe to our clients that actually sit underneath their mattress and are able to capture heart rate variability. So at that point, they have no wearable, right? So those are kind of the different types of devices that you could use to quantify. And we don't really promote any kind of brands. I mentioned Aura because we've tested that in Fitbit and others. But what works for you, again, it's just the trend. You care about, I'm going to try this thing for 2 weeks and then see what the effects are, right? And then as long as you have one tool, the trend is either going to go up or down. Now, if you change tools, that's when you get into trouble, right? Because you might if I do a week of Fitbit and another week of Aura, then you're not really comparing apples to apples, That's a key, just having one tool and then sticking to that tool.
Very well said, Karim. I want to come back to one thing you said earlier. And again, this is not an Aura commercial for the Aura Ring. We have no affiliation or anything like that. We just happen to both have one. But they are doing, as Karim alluded to, they are doing a study now with University of San Francisco, I believe, to track using Aura users to track temperature. And it's a little bit of a questionnaire every morning. Again, one of the symptoms of coronavirus is a fever and that sort of thing, and temperature can be a leading indicator of potentially you getting some sort of bug or getting sick. It certainly is for me. If I tend to run cold, so my baseline temperature is usually sort of a negative 0.1 or 0.2. If I get into a plus 0.4 or something, it's usually I can almost correlate it to something going on with me. So I think what they're trying to do is see, and people fill out this little questionnaire every morning. It takes like a minute to see if temperature can be a leading indicator to people getting not only just sick with whatever, but as right now with coronavirus as well. So I just wanted to mention that. And then I'm just going to ask a question right now. We're almost at the end here, but you said the sort of the gold standard, but PSG, what does that stand for? Because people might not know.
That's a good question. I mean, I had to polysonogram something or another.
Okay.
I'll just interject. It's polysomnography.
There you go.
Perfect.
That's the gold standard for sleep studies.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you, Dr. Carr.
You're welcome.
So, Karim, any last sort of parting words here before we sort of wrap it up, the formal part, and then get on to Q&A?
Yeah, I think we maybe in the Q&A, if we don't talk about it now, maybe we'll talk about different types of low-cost supplements and things that you could do, interventions that you could do. I don't want to touch it now. Maybe somebody's going to ask that question, but we
have a few minutes before we wrap up here. So let me maybe I'll start with what I do from a sleep perspective as far as supplementation, and then please jump in and critique what I'm doing or add other things. So you mentioned magnesium earlier. I find it's probably been 3 or 4 years now. I find if I, for whatever reason, maybe we got home late, we're traveling, something like that, and I don't take my magnesium before bed, then I will nearly almost always, and I'm a relatively active person, I'll almost always wake up with like leg cramping or cramping in my foot or something. I have to take my magnesium before bed. And then I know there's some, a lot of teas and that sort of thing. But again, I was trying to stay away from too much liquid, like too late, sort of almost after dinner time. I try not to have maybe just a sip of water or something, but not much. So I think magnesium is huge for sleep, and would love to hear your thoughts on anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think some low cost things that you could do again is because we're trying to tackle the stress issue, right? So in India, they have this wonderful plant called holy basil, tulsi. And Tulsi has quite a lot of research on able to help people with a decrease their cortisol levels. So if your issues are related to stress and things like that, make it a daily ritual. It doesn't have to be super close to bedtime, maybe an hour and a half, or 2 hours from bedtime. Start indulging in some holy basil instead of whiskey. In fact, we joke around. I've been in parties where we're actually drinking holy basil on ice, and people think it's whiskey and they're drinking whiskey or something like that, right? We've been kind of sneaky that way, my wife and I, on just having mocktails, I guess, pretend cocktails. So holy basil is a really good one. Chamomile tea is a really good one as well. Quite a lot of research on helping with cortisol levels and stress levels. And then stacking those things together, like you can actually do holy basil and chamomile as well as a kind of double combination, along with things like magnesium or L-theanine. Just trying to figure out what works. L-theanine and some supplements get to be pricier. Even magnesium, like I coach our clients to actually make their own magnesium oil. So using, I forget what it is right now, I'm drawing a blank, Epsom salt. So you boil Epsom salt and you create a liquid, and then that liquid you can take some magnesium topically. So the whole idea is that you have this Epsom salt. I think it's equal parts. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll add instructions to that on this podcast if we're able to. But taking that transdermally, so on your skin, you rub it on your skin, and you could really absorb quite a lot, enough that it makes me not have to have any issues. Because depending on the magnesium that you take too, it might actually induce a gastric effect, where you actually have makes you go to the bathroom. Some people have issues with that. So taking it not only at night, but during the day when you need it, when the magnesium absorption peaks, the rhythm peaks around noon. So taking the magnesium early on, but then at night helps. Some folks too take melatonin as well. Melatonin is mostly for regulating your sleep cycle. It does help. So if you're traveling, say you're going from Canada to India, and you have such a big difference in time zones, that really helps with jet lag. And then also, if you're dealing with sleeping issues in travel, like fasting when you're actually traveling is a good idea. And then eating your meal when you would actually consume your meal on that day for the first time. That's also a good way to regulate your circadian rhythm. What else as far as supplements?
What about like valerian root or lavender?
Yeah, I mean, you can get into those supplements too. And then you can get into even like aromatherapy as well for sleep, right? So there's different herbs and they have different effects on your physiology. So it just depends on figuring out what works for you, and then try it out. I would advise, if you're doing your experiments, and try to keep, your activity levels as you would, your food intake as you would, and then just have that one variable that you change, and try to see if that really helps you with your quality of sleep or not. After you've tried, sorry, I just wanted to say, just after you've tried the basic things like sleep hygiene, those are things that as a foundation, if you have poor sleep hygiene and you're just trying to make up for it by doing all these other things, it's not a good idea. I think I always recommend clients actually work on the sleep hygiene portion of it, which is you're going to get more bang for your buck on those things, and then really built into like now fine tuning your sleep ceremonies so that you can include some of these things. But you shouldn't rely on these things. Like some people just rely on valerian root or melatonin to knock themselves out, but that's not really eliminating your root cause of the problem. Your root cause of the problem might be stress. Your root cause of the problem might be, the light, right? So those are kind of artificial things that are just band-aids. You really have to go at the root cause of the problem and start at the foundational level and then build on these things that are actually going to get you, multiplied results.
Very, very well said. So I think we'll wrap up the formal portion and go to Q&A here. I just want to make note that for tomorrow, we're going to be talking about nutrition, and then movement and exercise the following day, and then everything mind, body, and soul on Thursday. So just keep in mind. And then I'll just also tease that on Thursday, at the end of the call, so stay on for at the end of Thursday, there will be some bonuses that will be available to all the listeners. So we have a couple of questions here. So this question is for Dr. Carr. I'd like to know what kind of blood work is required to get testing for the stress. What do I request from the doctor? Is it part of blood work?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So the fact is there is no one specific test for stress. In medical terms, we call it allostatic load. So again, I'm not going to go in details and explain. It's basically the wear and tear of your body. Now, if someone has excessive stress, and on Thursday, we're going to do a deeper dive on stress, and I don't want to talk about that right now. But what happens is, if your body is not able to deal with the stress optimally, there are some blood markers which can change. So some of the chief ones are, one is your blood sugar. Your fasting blood sugar can go up because of stress, or more importantly, because of how your body deals with the stress. So higher allostatic load. Your inflammation levels can go up. Now, inflammation levels are measured by quite a few different blood tests. One of the commonest is the HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive protein. That's one. Then there is another marker called fibrinogen. That is also a marker of inflammation, as well as higher clotting ability in the blood. These are the three major ones. Blood sugar is one of the really big ones. And again, the other thing is, Karim and Deepak have been talking a lot about cortisol. Now with cortisol, what happens is the true test for cortisol in terms of a stress response is a saliva test, where you measure the saliva cortisol, you spit into a tube 4 times in a day. Unfortunately, the blood test for cortisol, which is easily available, that is not the right test for stress, for assessing stress levels or allostatic load. That blood test that you do on a fasted state, go to the lab, that can just tell you about major diseases like Addison's disease or Cushing's disease. So that is not, my point is, a lot of people, particularly in India, because they can just go to the lab and just get their tests done, they do a morning cortisol level that tells us nothing other than about Cushing's and Addison's. So I talked about blood sugar levels, then inflammation level. The other thing is also some biometrics, things like having excessive belly fat. Now, what happens is, if your stress is not managed well, or more importantly, your body looks at it differently, what ends up happening is, again, cortisol is not just high or low. And I don't think we'll have enough time to go into all the details about cortisol, but unless you do a saliva test, you won't know where you are on that spectrum. And incidentally, saliva testing is not easily available. It is not available on healthcare if you are in Canada or Alberta. But inflammation levels, blood sugar levels, the other biometrics I was talking about is belly fat. So belly fat is the very metabolically active fat. Now, if you are not managing your stress levels well, sometimes it can happen that it makes you retain fat. That is one thing. The other thing is, if you just imagine, we talk a lot about acute stress and chronic stress. So chronic stress, if we are not managing that well, is what causes most of the problems. So if you look at acute stress back in our hunter-gatherer days was, a lion chasing you, or you are chasing a lion. So either at the end of it, which is usually a short span of time, you become the lion's lunch or you get your lunch. So what used to happen is if you have a lot of acute stress, your body thinks, okay, I need more blood sugar because I need to run. So if I need to run, then what happens is your muscles have to get the fuel. But sometimes our bodies may not be able to differentiate whether it's a lion chasing you stress, or it's just a deadline, or it's a coronavirus stress. So obviously, every stress you're not going to run. So if you're not running, what happens is that excess blood sugar that ends up, which you should be using up exercising or doing something else, that gets stored, and that causes a whole bunch of problems of insulin resistance, and makes you prone to diabetes, or if you already have diabetes, that can also impact that. So the other thing is, if you go to a regular family doctor or anyone who's not trained in functional medicine or any of the things that I'm talking about, they may not be able to help you in that sense. That number one, they may not do all these recommended tests, because if they don't know how to interpret it, then it becomes difficult. But at the same time, you can get these. So if you're in Alberta, you can get all these, except for the saliva testing, all the other tests I mentioned, you can get them done through healthcare. And in countries, I know a lot of people from India are on the call. In India, you can get them done through any lab. Saliva testing is a different thing. In Canada, it's available. In the US, it's easily available. In India, it's a little more difficult. So those are some of the blood tests that I would do. There are actually a whole lot, because stress would also impact your other hormone levels. So it could impact, in men, it could be testosterone levels, and testosterone levels is not just, libido and muscles. It's a lot of other things as well. It's your bone fitness, brain function. That is one. And for women, it could also impact the women's hormones like estrogen, progesterone, DHEA. And I don't think we'll have time to go into all those details. The hormones and sleep and stress is another episode altogether. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please feel free to ask again.
Yeah, if you want a clarification, just throw it into the Q&A. So we had a write-in emailed question, so I'll handle that one. So I quite often get this when I'm doing presentations and corporately and what have you. People are busy. I mean, right now everyone's kind of locked down in their homes, but prior to this, people are busy. They're rushing the kids off to school, going to work, and working through their lunch, etc. And then they got to pick up the kids and rush them to this, that, an activity, trying to get dinner on the table, what have you. So I get this question many times. It's like, what should I do for my overall health? What's better for me? Try and squeeze in that workout or get that extra hour of sleep. So this is, and I'll throw it back to the two of you to, if you disagree with me, but I always tell people, like, if you only have that 1 hour, and that's all you can muster in that day, I say get the extra hour of sleep. It's more important than doing crushing a workout, or even a light jog or what have you. I say get the extra hour of sleep. I think that's more beneficial for your health. So anyone disagree with me on that one?
No,
I agree.
I agree with that as well. I just wanted to touch up real quick. My screen froze, but I just wanted to also supplement Dr. Shabnam's answer there. So stress you can measure through lab work, and she measures some biometrics, like things like lean body mass and things like that. But one of the things that we've actually innovated in brain mechanics is we've actually come up with a way to quantify stress through biometrics. So we do a heart rate variability assessment where we can measure somebody's autonomic nervous system health. So whether you're sympathetic or parasympathetic, and we can literally ship you a box and you can do a 24-hour assessment, or you can do even a 7-day assessment. And we literally can look at to say, okay, you were in a meeting from 1 to 2, and you were totally in a state where you're very stressed. So we could actually see the stress spike, as well as being whether you're more predominantly sympathetic. And we do that on a 7-day basis. And we do that in some of our packages as well, where, if you're looking to optimize your sleep, well, we got to measure the stress impact of your day and identify whether it's a root cause. So there are ways of directly measuring stress levels with actually having to get lab tests.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I guess too, not to the accuracy of what Karim was just talking about, or blood work, but I mean, just for the average person who probably, maybe some of what we've talked about in the more higher end things, maybe their eyes are glazing over a bit, but most people have at least an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or a Garmin or what have you, like, or one of these other devices. Many people have them now. Most of them have some sort of stress level. Now, you can debate about how accurate they are or what have you, but if you notice that you are getting stressed on your watch, do some breathing, what have you, take a walk, take a break, whatever, and just wait for that. Or even heart rate, your heart rate's really high, breathe, let it come down. And it's a bit of a crude way, but I mean, it is an indication. Again, it's sort of a trend. So work with what you have, I guess I would say. You don't have to buy all these fancy things or
Yeah,
what have you.
I would caution that. I mean, it gives you a little bit of a surface, maybe you're stressed or not. Like you could have your heart rate going, but it's not necessarily stress. Like even with heart rate variability, right? You can be more sympathetic, but you might not have actually a stress spike, right? So, I mean, it does take a little bit more sophisticated equipment to measure, like do stress assessments, if you will. And I don't think the Apple Watch is there yet. Maybe they do have some crude way of measuring that, but yeah, that is something that to look at, to consider. And maybe that's a good thing. I actually have to take it for a test drive, Deepak, to compare the gold standard of measuring heart rate variability and an Apple Watch to see, not heart rate variability, but actually stress levels to see. Because I don't believe those devices actually quantify sympathetic and parasympathetic states, right? They just give you some kind of like, oh, your heart's speeding up a little bit, your pulse might be going up, but you might not necessarily be in a parasympathetic state, throughout the day. But yeah, that's a good experiment, actually.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on the gold standard there. I'll just use my wife as an example. She has a Garmin and it tracks stress and it gives you a graph. And however accurate you want to call it, but when she has a significant, let's say, call with her boss or some heated conversation with a coworker, and you go back, look at the data, it's like, yeah, that call was at 1 o'clock and I have a spike at 1 o'clock. So,
interesting.
So whether how good it is or not, I mean, it is debatable. And it's probably not as accurate, but I mean, for the person who already has something and doesn't want to spend any more money or whatever, it is something to do. We do have another question here, follow-up question. So again, for Dr. Shubnam, just to clarify, I have questions on belly fat. What should I do from there on? This is due not to enough movement. I have limited knowledge on this. What do you recommend on this? Where can I go from here on? Can I take a stab at that before you answer? Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go.
So I would say we're talking about so belly fat. I mean, all our 4 topics in these 4 days, right? We're all interrelated, right? Sleep, nutrition, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, movement and exercise the following day, and then mind body connection, etc. On Thursday. They're all interrelated. So I would say that I think specifically talking about belly fat or how to reduce belly fat, if I'm understanding the question exactly. I think we'll really get into that on tomorrow's call on nutrition and a little bit on Wednesdays with movement as well. But so yeah, stay tuned and listen to come on to all 4. But let me throw that question back to you there.
Thank you, Deepak. You've already answered my question. So tomorrow we're going to do a deeper dive on food and what else you can do for belly fat. So just belly fat is, in my world, a marker of insulin resistance. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And once you, as Deepak rightly pointed out, you go through these 4 webinars, you will have better clarity. And movement is definitely important. You talked about that, and Deepak is going to talk about it day after tomorrow. So stay tuned, number 1. Number 2, I just wanted to chime in 1 or 2 comments about, how you assess sleep. So for all of you in the audience, Karim had given me one of those headbands to wear.
Polysonogram.
So what had happened is, after 5 days, I told Karim, I don't see myself going to bed with that headband every day. So this is where different perspectives matter. So if you are not using a wearable, and I use a Fitbit, so I know it doesn't give the best data on sleep. Karim and Deepak have been telling me about it for a while. But what I've figured out is, we used to, back in the days when we didn't use wearables, there were a few questions we used to ask our patients, clients, Number 1 was, do you feel rested when you wake up in the morning? Number 2 is, do you dream? So dream means deeper sleep. So these are 2 like absolutely basic ways of knowing how. And some of you have, a challenge with falling asleep and staying asleep. Those are different problems. versus some people have a problem of prioritizing sleep. They don't think sleep is important for them. So there are two different kinds of problems. So obviously there are two different kinds of solutions. But Karim has some fantastic solutions, and I would encourage all of you to go to his website. And you, all of you have a link to the website as well. So brainmechanics.io. Karim, did I get it right?
That's right.
Yeah, and you can also book for a free 15 minutes call with Karim because each one of you will probably need different solutions. So what did I learn when I started wearing my, device, and why I always encourage people to get a wearable, you know? And again, there are different, perspectives with all of this. Many of the wearables are so ugly looking that, we don't want to wear them. One of the things I realized is I used to associate my, time in bed with, the how long I slept. And I realized when I started wearing one that was not true. So that was one of my major insights. And again, I tried to do a very rough comparison between, so Fitbit gives a sleep score. So I try to do a rough comparison between the score that Fitbit gives me and what I felt when I woke up in the morning. So I ask myself, how did I think was my sleep? And quite often I have found that rough number, Fitbit is not that accurate. That number corresponds to how I feel. So most of you, if you have a challenge with sleep, you know it when you don't get good sleep. And I'm someone who's dealing with those challenges. And I have realized that probably 7 hours to 7.5 hours is my sweet spot, and it could be different for different people. Though in terms of health, the best is between 7 and 8 hours. More than 9 hours and more than 8.5 hours is also not healthy. Less than 6 to 6.5 hours is definitely not healthy. So if I ask myself, how was my sleep last night, that kind of correlated to what, number my Fitbit gave me. So this is kind of my version for those people who are not big into biohacking, who don't want to go to sleep wearing a device or any of that. That is not a bad way to measure. Number one. Number two is, talking about polysomnography, and we're running out of time. There are some other aspects, like one of the major areas is obstructive sleep apnea. This event is not about obstructive sleep apnea, but I just want to put in two words about, obstructive sleep apnea and women. It is quite different. Maybe if we have time later on, we can have a bonus session with more questions and all that for later on. But obstructive sleep apnea symptoms in women is a little different. What I'm going to do is I'll probably post a link for you all to screen whether obstructive sleep apnea is a problem for you or not. This is an online questionnaire which you can find out. And Karim mentioned the polysomnography. So obstructive sleep apnea is tested by doing a polysomnography. And of course, I don't have access to Karim's fancy, gadgets and all those things. But in polysomnography is something that your doctor can order for you. That is one thing. Unless you're going to Karim and Karim is going to put you through all these fancy assessments.
Yeah, and we do people who have sleep apnea, we're not here to treat them. That is a medical condition. But when we do an assessment, we actually do a 7-day assessment. So the device that you were wearing, Dr. Shabna, you don't only have to wear it for 7 days, but we do capture sleep interruption events, which are really indicative of sleep apnea. And if sleep apnea is not an ideal client for us, and we would refer you to a doctor, but at least we could give you a low-cost way to actually measure that, because sleep studies are between 500 to 1,000 per sleep night, which are pretty pricey. And what we're looking to do is looking to actually make it so that is we capture 7 days, so it gives us a really much more insightful of your sleep architecture. Everybody's really different. Not everybody's brain is the same or the sleep pattern's the same. And we capture that baseline. And if you move forward with any of our other sleep optimizing services, we continue to capture baselines throughout your journey. But then, if you're a client that has that condition, then we do refer you to a sleep apnea. The sweet spot, I guess, we specialize is in areas where we could, behavioral changes and things like that, right? And we are very good at something called cognitive behavioral therapy interventions. So things like meditation. I myself have been a meditator for 16 years, and we make it so easy for people to take on a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, and even how to, the first technique that we teach on a course is called a self-trainer, which we're actually offering as well for free for a week if you guys want to try it out. Really powerful breathing techniques that actually help you to regulate yourself and hack into that autonomic nervous system. So if your issues are related to stress, this one technique that we're making free for you to try, very powerful. It's called 478. Very powerful technique. And just like learning any new skill, we don't just give you the technique, we actually give you a whole routine where you do for a week. And that same whole routine you can implement for the rest of your lives. And also, what are the best times to apply these techniques? Times of the day or dealing with challenges, so that you're able to actually learn how to do this and apply it everyday life. So I'd encourage you, if your issues are related to anything related to stress or even behavior, that we really do help folks with that kind of issues at a very low cost price point.
So I'll just chime in here with one thing that just kind of reminded me after Dr. Carr, when you were talking. So when I work with a client, I probably have not a single client who comes to me who couldn't optimize their sleep better. And one thing I find a common question, you just reminded me when you were talking, I'll talk to clients or pre-clients on their intake, like, how do you sleep? Like, how do you feel when you get up? How do you feel refreshed when you get up? So that qualitative question. And I quite often get like, oh, I feel great when I get up after I have my coffee. It's like, okay, so yeah, you're not rested. You're equating, caffeinating yourself, and a stimulant to get your day going. Like, oh, I had a great sleep. So there's a disconnect there for many people. So I just wanted to chime in with that. Now, we don't have any other questions in the Q&A, so we'll give it maybe just a minute here if somebody quickly wants to jump in. But I'll just, again, reiterate before we wrap up here, if we don't have another question. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about nutrition, movement and exercise on Wednesday, and then mind, body, gratitude, meditation, like all those kind of things, sort of wrap up the whole holistic approach, to your health, which are all things that we need to deal with, or we should be trying to optimize in ourselves, regardless of any time, but certainly in this times we're in right now with, this highly infectious disease going around, people are overstressed, underslept, nutrition, I'll probably say the same thing tomorrow, but, I've been, when I've been gone to the grocery stores, it's people, there's not a run on vegetables. There's not a run on fruit, it's people are, chips and all that kind of stuff. So we're stressing ourselves out. So, through these 4 days, you're going to learn everything that you need to learn to optimize your health, or at least a high level of all the things you need to optimize your health. But it's even that much more important right now with, COVID-19, what we're dealing with at the moment. So we didn't get any other questions. So any last words from the two of you?
Deepak, there were one or two questions that were emailed. So one was,
okay.
And I didn't bring it up because we don't have time. So one of the questions was hormone therapy and sleep for women, and I think we are going to do a separate, event for that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is you talked about temperature in the bedroom. So one of the things that most people recommend is a temperature setting of 18 or 19 degrees centigrade. So if you're using an air conditioning in warm countries like India, you can set it at that. And as Deepak mentioned about having different temperature, requirements for him and his wife, so you can, fine tune that. That is one. The other thing I wanted to mention is all of you by default are registered for all the 4 events, so you don't need to register again. You'll probably receive an email from Zoom, and you'll also receive a recording. And the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people have registered from India, and of course it's the middle of the night in India. In India, they have a complete lockdown. That means people are only at home. So it's in Alberta, we have a whole lot more freedom, if you want to say that. But it's a different place, and and that is what they needed. So it's like people can't even go outside their door. So it's that restrictive.
If I could we did get one more question just that came in here. Yes. So the question was if some person came on late to the call. So yes, the question was, will these calls be sent out afterwards? So yes, at the end of the series, after all 4 are complete, probably sometime next week after we've time to edit and what have you, it will be, available to all the people that registered, as well as you'll be able to find it on, at least for myself anyway, on my social media channels and what have you as well. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, Karim, did you want the last word there?
No, I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm so grateful and happy to, if people who are watching this, that means that you're care about your health and wellness, and you're making a substantial investment of your time to join us. I just want to thank you and encourage you on your journey. And Dr. Shabna and Deepa are wonderful people, so you'll be in really good hands for the rest of the webinar.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much,
Karim.
Karim. Thank you. So see you all tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Take
Same
care.
time, same place. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good day.